Colorado Mesa University. In this session, BJ will focus on engaging students as they discover their own cultural history through writing. She'll offer teaching strategies to promote cultural diversity and to empower students to link technology to real-life learning experiences. BJ, are you ready?
Yes, Amy, I'm ready.
Great, thank you so much.
Okay. So I'm watching as the screen is shifting over to me. Okay.
I think we're seeing your screen now. Yep, we're seeing your screen now, I think.
Okay, great. Okay, sounds good, Amy.
Great. Thanks, BJ.
Right.
I'll let you take it away. Let me know if you need anything.
All right, thank you, Amy.
Certainly.
Okay, howdy, Pearson partners. I'm BJ from GJ. That's Grand Junction. And Grand Junction, Colorado. We have 24 wineries here. If you're ever passing through, please be sure to stop by and taste our wonderful peach wine, okay? So this is the beginning of my presentation. This is presented for Pearson Education, and the title of it is Be a Change Agent, Touch Diversity Through Cultural Studies. Language acquisition is the process by which humans perceive, produce, and use words to communicate. Okay, so I need to minimize this right now. I want to show you something that I do with my students. I have a video presentation, and I play this. It's called Stand By Me. It's a presentation of cultural diversity, and what it does is it goes around the world through music. So I want my students to be able to be engaged in multi-diversity through technology. So I play this video clip on Playing for Change, and it's about 5 minutes or so. The students really enjoy it. They like to see the different cultures throughout the world that are displayed in this YouTube video. And it's a way to reach the 21st century student by being technology savvy. Okay? So this is what I do beginning to engage them and get their attention. So that's the video that I show. Then I go to my actual lesson, and this is where the lesson is entitled, presented for in the beginning here, the language acquisition. And it's pedagogy, effective teaching strategies. This is cultural studies which encourage students to research and share information about their own cultural history. I have the TESOL standards. The TESOL standards are teaching English speakers of other languages. There's proficiency levels developed by the TESOL guide for state standards and the benchmarks. The content areas include reading, writing, communicating, and at the different grade levels. So each standard is listed, and the learners will communicate information, ideas, or concepts on like standard 5. Okay. I also have a strategy outlined in the cultural studies through imaging. I work with students that are English language learners, ELLs, and adult English language learners. My strategy implementation is the purpose is to provide opportunities for students to use learning strategies in cultural studies throughout their writing. I use scaffolding techniques to support student understanding and I provide a variety of questions and task projects to promote higher order of thinking. Also, in the, working with the ELL and the AEL students, the strategy implementation concerns purpose, which is to provide opportunities for students to use learning strategies in cultural studies through writing. And the scaffolding techniques will support student understanding, and there's also a variety of questions and task projects to promote a higher order of thinking skills. Ooh. Okay, so next one, let's see. Oh, I'm a little bit stuck here on this slide. So let me see if I can go to the next one here. Ooh, I'm stuck on the slide here, Amy. So let's see if I can keep the slide is, oh, here we go. Okay, had a little glitch there. The strategy delivery is, the topic is cultural studies and imaging. So the freshman developmental English class students at WCC and CMU, they have an example of a real-life student engagement and discussion review. The lesson application has a checklist and supplemental materials, and the assessment involves a reflective writing and rubric. Some of the effective strategies on cultural studies, I ask them these questions. Have you ever traveled to another country? Did you encounter or enable you in your encounter to learn about other cultures but also about your own? So the cultural, multicultural society that we live in the United States, the opportunities to learn from other groups of cultures throughout the world and also throughout the United States. And cultural is transmitted through language, material objects, rituals, art from one generation to the next. Okay, so then I go through a cultural symbol about my mother's food through Nora Oja Keller. Now I'm going to pull out of this and I'm going to go over to my PowerPoint, leave my PowerPoint, and I go to the web, and there's a written description, and we read this article about my mother's food. It's a direct connection, a web link, and it explains about kimchi, which is a food that comes through the cultural of the Korean family. So I go through that, then I'll go back to my PowerPoint, and after I've linked and we've discussed and read and did some main topic understanding on the article on the web. Then the cultural studies application, what I do is I go through on how to make kimchi. It's a YouTube video, which is a real reality-based presentation, and this is a video visited in her home in New York and how she makes kimchi. It's one of the foods that's spiced pickle staple that they use within their culture, and it's about 2 minutes and 52 seconds. So then I link to this one. I'll go back and I go over to how to make kimchi. This is a YouTube presentation. The students really like it because it involves music and it involves the culture. So it's about the family connection and how this food is passed down through generations and generations. So this takes about 2-3 minutes or so, and it actually gives the reality-based for the student on how the family orientates to food and their cultural, and it's very fascinating. I get a lot of responses from the students because they've never seen quite how that in the culture, the Korean culture, that the kimchi is made. Let's see, then I will go back into my slide presentation after the kimchi, and I have them review questions. Discussion questions, I pair them up. What did kimchi symbolize for Keller when she was a child? And why did she stop eating it? So I have 5 questions here that they discuss and interchange. For example, what do you think the author wants her daughter to think of herself as Korean? So there's lots of interaction that happens with the students after the video clips and the previous reading of the material. The lesson assignments include cultural studies. I do a mini essay. It's a 5-paragraph essay that we've done before so that they'll know what the format is. So it's about 2 pages. They use cultural history and diversity and symbols, traditions, heroes to develop and communicate a pattern of organization in a mini essay. They basically do an introduction, a body, which includes supporting points, so they will need to do research, and a conclusion for this mini essay. They also need to cite their references and sources. So part of the assignment is that they will definitely go through a checklist. I gather their ideas. They need to go through their checklist for cultural symbols, a tradition by questioning, freelancing, how they develop their ideas in the process, essay process, how the ideas will be connect to keywords and traditions, and they need to do the research. Okay, the reflective writing is, after they've done the research, after they've written the paper, did you enjoy writing about an aspect of your culture? Why or why not? And what did you learn about another classmate's culture that you did not know previously? And what is the why is cultural diversity important? So I also have a rubric review. Using the rubric, they score what would you give yourself. What was the best part of this writing assignment? If you could go back and change anything, what would you change? Describe the process of how you used to do the writing so that they can do reflective thinking, finalizing, and especially peer reviews. On the approximate behaviors of the TESOL standards, the TESOL standards are teaching English speakers of other languages. There's the different levels of the cultural studies in reading, writing, and communicating at the grade level. So I have listed here the content standards for kindergarten to primary grades, upper and elementary and middle school, the high school, and I work with the developmental college level. So the students are engaged in researching and mini essay development about their own cultural history to transfer their skills into effective writing. So in that aspect, the theory to practice connection in the higher thinking, Bloom's taxonomy, I have a content objective. The student will be able to demonstrate Bloom's taxonomy by creating a visual image through educational technology and content acquisition. Also, I have a language objective. The student can explain their visual image and picture and its meaning to a partner in language acquisition. Here's Bloom's levels of questioning, and questioning specifically for English. So I have the 6 categories, the 6 boxes here. I work with knowledge, comprehension, and apply the knowledge or the generalization to a new situation, the analysis, the synthesis, and the evaluation. So for higher thinking skills, these are categories that are part of the education profession that will apply to specifically this assignment. The theory to practice connection, we use artwork, and I have a really neat quote by Rochelle Frey, and art can be used the same way as written text can be to explain children's knowledge of the world and to understand what children do when they make sense of that world. Art can provide a window into how children notice their understanding of images and knowledge of that world. Because of the open-minded nature of this lesson, it is particularly appropriate for the multi-level classrooms and special needs of students with specifically English language learners. But I've also found that my other students that are not ELLs, that they love to do this assignment because it's like, how will this look like in my heritage, in my roots? The approximate behaviors of the TESOL standards involve imaging and reading and writing and communicating. And here again are the primary grades, the elementary grades, the high school level. And the developmental college level, students are engaged in image and visual expressions through researching and transfer those skills into effective writing. One of my favorite quotes is, watch your thoughts, for they become words. Watch your words, for they become actions. Watch your actions, for they become habits. Watch your habits, for they become your character. Watch your character, for it becomes your destiny. And that's from Margaret Thatcher, former Prime Minister of England, or United Kingdom. So I discuss the importance of words. These are supplemental strategies for English language learners or adult ELLs. And some of the key factors are that we need to take in appropriate speech, sometimes speak slowly but more naturally. Monitor the vocabulary can be difficult, but using simple sentences and avoid idioms. We also provide explanation on academic tasks. These will provide step-by-step directions. They break up some big tasks into smaller tasks. And anytime that I can use visual representation, I'll always use the visual representation, excuse me. So here's my rubric. I have an introduction. They need to use transition. They need to use details and specifics. I look for creativity. I want my students to expound upon their creativity and also what appeals to the senses, how they can feel that experience, and also the developmental part. Is each paragraph long enough? Are the paragraphs cohesive? The conclusion is also included as part of this rubric, and sentence fluency. You know, the common elements, the most common errors with my freshman developmental ed students are fragments, run-ons. We look for punctuation, the spelling, and the final finished paper presentation. Some other supplemental materials take into account the student's language proficiency level. A lot of the students that I have in the English language learners or the adult language learners, I take into account, are they L1, which is language 1, which would be their native tongue. I'll explain that further down. I also try to use graphic organizers, brainstorming maps, visual aids, animation. I love to use computerized technology. I believe we're in the 21st century dealing with a student that is very technology orientated, and so I like to use highlighted key vocabulary. I use PowerPoint, just as what I'm showing you here. How to use the visual imagery. You can follow some of these steps that will help to practice developing the student's mental images. I find that working with adult developmental students, that they need to take time out to compose in their mind mental images. So they may begin reading, and after a few sentences or paragraphs, can they describe that image? And can they describe that information? So it's called In Your Mind's Eye. Have you created in your mind the presentation, the written word? And we talk about these pictures, and then we'll continue reading and share the images. And also in visual imagery, are your images identical? We discuss, we try to draw questioning, Q&As, question and answers. And we read text and we continue to share, because learning is a process. Language acquisition is a process. And once this becomes a little bit more familiar to them, I encourage them to use their mental imagery as they're reading by themselves so they can conceptualize in their mind the information that they're processing. In language acquisition, there's the first language. That's the native tongue, the speaking of the mother tongue, we call it. And they continue as a means of communication, and they pass it on to generations or of the future of one's culture, their knowledge, their values. That's L1. L2 is the second language, and the future lies in teaching specifically to the learner's cultures and needs. We have quite a diversity within our university and our community college. So we have Chinese students, Japanese, students from India. So the diverse strategies to bring out the change within the student. They offer avenues for students to learn. There's lots of abbreviations in the cultural diversities and cultural studies. So here's some word abbreviations. English language learners, ELL. First language is learning language 1. So in my case, I'm an English-speaking individual, and so L1, my second language, would be Spanish or Chinese or Japanese. And these are all the various terminologies that are used within the language acquisition field. There's also specially designed academic instruction. So TESOL, of course, is the International Teachers of English to Speakers of Other Languages. And here are my references. I had a lot of different references. There's wonderful resources and works cited, references available for this presentation that individuals can access. I know teachers love to look at sources that are available for them. So different sources and reference that I've listed. And then finally, I leave it open for questions and comments, whatever may be needed in this presentation. And a lot of, we have a nice discussion afterward. So that sort of concludes my presentation. Are there questions?
Thank you so much. Thanks so much, BJ. We're just kind of waiting to see if the questions pane updates itself.
Oh, okay.
So let's see what we have.
Thank you, Amy.
No trouble. Let's see. There's a question here about when you're teaching ELL students, what are like do you think a lot about the differences between like audio learners and visual learners? Do you think are there like some predominant traits among that group in terms of how they learn best, or how do you think about those kind of things in your teaching strategies?
In my teaching strategy, when I'm working with students that English may be the second language and maybe Chinese might be the predominant L1 language, is that I find that it's important that you speak slowly and also that you have the written content material available for them, and then working in small groups or pair-to-pairs help out with communicating the content material. I found that in the Pearson program called My Skills Lab, there's wonderful opportunities for the student to not only have the animation, but also to have the spoken word, the visual, and they find that that's really beneficial for them.
I can totally see that. There's another question here about when you're dealing with a very diverse classroom, do you find that it's harder to get a general consensus on a given topic, or do you just kind of steer clear of those kinds of conversations, like trying to direct them toward consensus?
Oh no, I like variety and diversity. All of the students, they have, when they express their opinion, especially like when on this lesson, what I found out was that they were amazed at dwelling into their heritage and their cultural roots. I had students that were researching their cultural roots after this presentation, and they were more than willing to intercommunicate and to share that information, and they learned from each other, and they found out that it was important that they were learning about another person's culture, not just their own.
Mm-hmm. You know, there's a question here about text language. So, do you know when you're teaching ELL students, do they ever do they write in text language in your class? Do you have any exercises like that? And if so, are they using sort of the text language of their native language, or are they sort of integrated into kind of Americanized text language?
The students that I have, they have the basic writing skills. I do not have dual language or dual immersion within my classroom because I do not speak another language. So the students that are multi-language, dual language, they mainly work with the written word through the basic writing skills, basic grammar skills, and I find that they can do the writing competencies, but again, I emphasize they find that reading is one of the most valuable assets that the student is receiving in the reading and writing classes that we do.
Mm-hmm.
Now, did I answer that clearly?
I think so. If not,
okay.
our questioner will pose a follow-up, but I think so.
Okay.
We have another question about when you're starting a discussion, do you find you need to steer clear of colloquialisms, or do you kind of go
For
into
example,
those? I don't know.
Can
I'll
you
wait
give me an example?
Such as, I'm watching it come in now on the question page.
Oh, okay.
So just bear with me.
Oh yeah, the technology is a little delayed there, but it's there.
Okay.
That's the key.
Exactly. Let's see. Well,
If the
such as
person
things like seeing the forest through the trees, kinds of idiomatic speech like that.
Oh, idiomatic. Oh yes, we have to spend a little bit of time on that because the English language is so full of idioms,
Right.
Especially right now with the Japanese students and the Chinese students and the Spanish students that I have. They find that how can the English language have such dual terminology and dual definitions, and we spend a little bit of time, but I find that when they interact with the students in the classroom, that the fellow students, they explain to them, because they have such cohesiveness in my class, they sort of bond together, and it's really neat to see one student interact with the other students and go, oh, this is what I mean, bear, like for example, bear. We have a bear, B-E-A-R, or B-A-R-E, and so they find it quite amusing that our language is so colloquialism. So, okay.
Great. Yeah, thank you. That brings up kind of another question that I think about just with writing studies and classroom practice in general, which is when you're putting together a group, like for group work, do you do you have your students work in the same group over the course of the semester? And sort of another question I often have about group work is when you're configuring those groups, are they kind of randomized or self-selecting, or do you think about like do you put the group together yourself based on criteria like strengths and weaknesses, or certain number of English speakers versus non-English speakers, that kind of stuff? So just maybe talk a little bit about your habits around group work.
In my group work, I do randoms. I'll do like a color coding so that I can have a different diversity. And sometimes I will have a student, because, for example, one of my students is having difficulty with textual writing, content writing, and I really do have to depend upon the bilingual student who can speak fluently Spanish and English, and I might pair them up if the individual's having difficulty in a reading portion of the assignment. But I find that the students rise up to the occasion to help the individual that might be a little bit less competent in the English language. And they pair up automatically. They sort of bond in diversity. I was really amazed when I see my group work together.
We have a question here about, it's kind of a two-part question. First, are most of your students native-born Americans? And secondarily, how do you avoid falling into kind of cultural tourism when you're aiming for deep analysis with your students?
Okay, for the first part, most of my students are of the generation that was born within the United States. The majority of them are. Because we're a smaller college. We're only 10,000 at Colorado Mesa University, though our class sizes are approximately 25 individuals in a class. So mainly they are the generation that have been born in the United States. I have a few students that have been born in their native country, and so, but it was in the younger years, because I have adults that are over 25 sometimes. So in answering that question. And the second question was again, Amy?
It's how do you avoid kind of having students fall into a kind of cultural tourism when you're aiming for deep analysis? How do you get them to go below the surface?
To go into a deeper analysis of what the topic may be? Well, I know that when I use such technology as any kind of YouTube video or any kind of animation, that because they're so multimedia orientated and so technology orientated, and with their smartphones and tablets and iPhones, etc., that I find that when I can trigger a visual imagery in some way, then they start to think in more broader sense and look at the whether it's an issue that might evolve. Like we get into some really great discussions, for example, on immigration, on voting, etc.
The questioner was, I think, starting to enter a follow-up question, but I'm not seeing whether it's coming through. Oh, we'll wait just a second more.
Okay.
I'm going to exercise my lack of musical talent by humming. Apparently, I forgot that I wasn't muted. I'm like,
okay.
I'm not a talented person in that way. I should not be allowed to hum into an open microphone.
Well, am I the last? I'm the last presentation, right?
You are, and I think the technology's being a little bit laggy, and I don't know that we need to wait on it. Well, so we were getting ready to wrap up anyway, BJ. So I think I'm just going to thank you for your time today and let everyone know that we are going to post the recorded sessions and the PowerPoints themselves so that people can reference it. And I know you have these great reference lists in here, which I think are wonderful resources, and we'll be sure and post this as a PowerPoint so people can download those and use those references that you thoughtfully provided.
Okay. Well, thank you, Amy. I really appreciate it. I think it's important that we, in this time and age, that we are reaching out and touching diversity to make changes and be a change agent within our society, but especially in education.
Mm-hmm.
So I appreciate you having me as a speaker today, and I really enjoyed sharing the material that I provided.
Thank you so much, and thank you everyone for attending today. We will, you know, if you want a certificate, you can email us if you need a certificate of participation. We will have all these things posted on the Pedagogy and Practice website as well, and we'll email everyone who was registered and let you know when those recordings are available. So,
that'd be great to have reference material of the individuals that presented today, Amy.
Great. Thank you so much again, BJ, and thanks everyone. I think we're probably going to sign it off now. So,
okay. All right.
Bye now.
Bye-bye.